So imagine your laptop is just slammed shut, like it's completely asleep. You're miles away, I don't know, maybe sitting on a beach or just grabbing a coffee somewhere.
Right, totally disconnected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But inside that dormant machine sitting on your desk, an AI agent is quietly waking up your internal systems. It's navigating your desktop, testing software, opening up databases, and, well, essentially completing your entire workday for you, all without ever actually turning on the screen.
Which is a pretty wild thing to picture.
It really is. And welcome to the deep dive. Today is May 19th, 2026. We're doing something highly structured today.
Yeah.
Think of this session as an executive-level research briefing.
Yeah, we've taken a massive stack of recent market reports, tech developments, and some major corporate restructuring news, and we've synthesized it down to its core mechanisms.
Because you really need to see the big picture here.
Right. We are approaching this with the analytical rigor of, say, a senior MIT researcher delivering a state-of-the-industry briefing, but we're really looking for the through line, the underlying shift driving the entire market right now.
And here is the core thesis we are presenting to you today. The artificial intelligence industry has fundamentally transitioned. We are no longer in the generative phase.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like the era where you type a prompt and just wait for a poem or a picture. That's over. We have entered the era of autonomous execution and structural integration.
It's a completely different paradigm.
It is. AI is moving from being a software tool you use to this invisible layer that operates your devices, models physical reality, merges with human biology, and honestly replaces legacy corporate infrastructure.
Okay.
So, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin to set the analytical framework for a shift this massive?
Well, I think we begin with the friction of the interface. Because before AI can restructure the macroeconomic landscape, it first has to prove it can operate the digital tools that you and I rely on and do it autonomously.
Right.
For the last few years, the bottleneck hasn't actually been the intelligence of the models. It's been the human operator. You have to sit at a screen, stay logged in, and really hold the software's hand.
Yeah, you had to be the manager, basically checking in every 5 minutes. Did it do this right? Did it click the right thing?
Exactly. But that limitation is just evaporating. The recent developments we're seeing with OpenAI's Codex and Google's Gemini, they show a very deliberate structural effort to bypass that digital friction entirely.
The data on this Codex update is genuinely wild. I mean, OpenAI is extending Codex's remote control capabilities to operate macOS applications via a feature they call computer use.
And this is where it gets interesting.
Right, because here is the kicker. It can do this even when the laptop is asleep or completely locked. You can literally dispatch a complex coding task from your phone to a Mac Mini sitting on a desk miles away.
Just from your phone.
Yeah. The AI wakes the machine's internal processes, tests the GUI build, hits the data sources, and finishes the whole job without a live screen session. And for the non-engineers listening, a GUI build is the graphical user interface, meaning the AI is essentially moving a phantom mouse and clicking buttons on a screen you can't even see.
To really understand why that is such a profound shift, you have to look at the mechanism of operating system security.
Okay, lay affairs.
Historically, architectures like macOS assume that a locked screen equals an untouchable idle session, right? If there is system-level activity, a human must have physically authenticated it at the keyboard.
Yeah, and I have to push back on the security implications of this, to be honest. Giving an AI the ability to bypass a locked Mac screen is kind of like giving a corporate intern the master keys to the building, turning off the cameras, and telling the security guards to just look the other way.
It sounds alarming when you put it like that.
But you are fundamentally breaking the physical security model of the device.
What's fascinating here is how this redefines the entire concept of a user. You know, OpenAI and Anthropic, who, by the way, recently shipped a similar phone-to-machine control for Claude Code, they are turning AI into an invisible, ubiquitous operating system.
It's literally operating underneath the surface.
Right. It bypasses the locked screen because the AI is now authenticated as a proxy user. And Google is doing the exact same thing on the consumer and enterprise workflow side with Gemini.
Yes, the Gemini update is the perfect parallel here. Google is rolling out an extended thinking level for Gemini. So it's moving far beyond just answering trivia or writing email.
It's actually taking action.
Exactly. They're launching deep third-party app integrations. It can seamlessly move assets between folders in Canva and reply to comments on a design on your behalf.
Wow.
Or, it can read a recipe, find the exact ingredients, and autonomously load up your Instacart shopping cart. It can even check OpenTable, find a restaurant with availability for 3 people in the next hour, and just book it for you.
So notice the shared mechanism across both Codex and Gemini here. The AI is executing multi-step workflows across these disparate siloed applications without any human intervention. The digital friction of the screen is just gone.
Completely gone.
But once an AI can autonomously operate the digital world, the next logical hurdle is the physical world. I mean, if it's going to solve complex real-world problems for you, it must understand physical reality.
Which is a massive pivot from how we've been building AI.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, the assumption was always that to build artificial general intelligence, you just feed the machine more text, like you just feed it the whole internet.
But language is actually an incredibly low-bandwidth way to describe reality.
It really is.
It is entirely bounded by human understanding and our own bias. Language models only know what we have actively bothered to write down. So if an AI is going to operate autonomous robotics in dynamic environments or synthesize new materials, it needs to understand the fundamental physics of the universe, not just human syntax.
And this brings us to a company called Runway. This is fascinating. They are currently valued at $5.3 billion, having raised around $860 million.
Massive war chest.
Right. And their entire bet is that the industry's obsession with large language models is basically a dead end. Runway was actually founded by 3 alumni from the NYU Tisch Art School, starting out in video generation.
Right, making those AI video clips.
Yeah, but they're moving way beyond making pretty videos for Hollywood now. They're building what they call world models.
So a world model is an AI system that simulates environments accurately enough to predict how they will behave. You can think of it as a digital twin of reality, but the mechanism of how they train it, that is crucial.
How so?
Well, they train models directly on raw video and sensory input. So if an AI tries to predict the next frame of a video showing a glass falling off a table, it has to implicitly learn that things fall downwards.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it learns gravity, light reflection, and fluid dynamics just by observing pixels, without anyone explicitly coding those physical rules in text.
It's incredible. Their stated goal is to build a better scientist than human scientists. They want to tackle massive physical problems like robotics, drug discovery, and even anti-aging.
It's hugely ambitious.
But strategically, I have to ask, how does a scrappy startup founded by art students in New York City compete with Google's Genie World model or OpenAI's massive compute power, especially when training these physical world models requires compute clusters that cost billions of dollars?
That is exactly their existential risk. You cannot build foundational physics models without dedicated massive GPU clusters. Now, Runway does have partnerships with NVIDIA and CoreWeave, but they are really racing against hyperscalers.
And the hyperscalers are the massive tech giants like Google and Microsoft who physically own the data centers and the compute power outright.
Right. But Runway's leadership is betting that their outsider perspective allows them to move faster. They genuinely believe visual intelligence, not linguistic intelligence, is the true path to AGI.
So it's a high-stakes race to basically build a digital twin of the universe. But if an AI can operate our digital tools autonomously, and it can model physical reality perfectly, there's a glaring vulnerability here.
Which is us.
Yeah, how do we, as slow biological humans, interact with a system moving that fast?
We merge with it, which means we need to look at the brain-computer interface, or BCI sector.
Elon Musk recently made headlines claiming that Neuralink is building Jesus-level technologies.
Wow.
Yes, that is the actual quote. Leave it to Silicon Valley to literally brand their product as a divine intervention.
But, I mean, they have already implanted devices in paralyzed patients who can now control computers with neural signals. And Musk announced they are aiming to implant their Blindsight device by the end of this year, which aims to eventually restore and perhaps even create superhuman vision.
Setting the hyperbole aside for a moment, we really need to analyze how institutional capital is reacting to this. Wall Street is no longer treating brain implants as fringe science fiction. Morgan Stanley is estimating an $80 billion BCI market by 2035.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Investors are assigning massive optionality premiums to these companies.
Explain that for the listener. Sure. So if you aren't familiar with the term, think of an optionality premium like buying up cheap farmland because you have a hunch a major highway might get built there in 10 years. The land isn't producing much right now, but the future upside is astronomical. Investors are treating speculative neurotechnology as the inevitable next layer of AI infrastructure.
It's just treated as a given at this point.
Right. And it isn't just Musk. There are more than 130 BCI startups out there right now. Sam Altman is tied to a company called Merge Labs, which raised over $250 million. And sovereign nations, particularly China, are heavily investing in this as a strategic geopolitical asset.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the AI arms race has fundamentally breached human biology. The analytical takeaway for an executive observer is this capital is rotating toward human-machine integration long before commercial viability or FDA regulatory hurdles are cleared.
They aren't waiting around.
Not at all. Markets spent the last 2 years rewarding companies that built AI data centers. Now, they're looking for the next convergence point between AI, advanced semiconductors, and the human nervous system. Wall Street rarely waits for regulatory certainty before pricing in future infrastructure.
But hold on. If we are merging humans with autonomous AI, and the AI can act on our behalf, who legally owns your synthetic identity? Because controlling the data that feeds these systems is now a matter of absolute corporate survival.
It really is. We are transitioning from technical capability to legal control. And there is a fascinating acquisition that perfectly illustrates this kind of moat-building behavior.
Yeah, let's talk about OpenAI quietly acquiring a tiny 6-person startup called Weights.gg. And then almost immediately they shut the product down and just disperse the team.
Which raises some eyebrows.
Definitely. Weights.gg had hosted a public catalog of unauthorized, cloned voices. Anyone could go on there and find highly realistic voice models for Taylor Swift, Samuel L. Jackson, President Trump, and former President Biden. And just to be totally clear to you listening, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, we are looking at these names purely as high-profile intellectual property assets.
Exactly. The political affiliations are completely irrelevant to the core issue, which is the unauthorized replication of a synthetic identity.
Right. But I have to question the strategy here. Why would OpenAI, arguably the most powerful AI company in the world, buy a 6-person startup just to kill its product? Was this like a 2-eye hire just to get some smart engineers? Or was this a targeted tactical takedown of a legal liability?
It was absolutely a targeted cleanup operation. Let's look at the underlying mechanism. In 2026, the technical capability to clone a voice is completely commoditized. Anyone with a consumer-grade graphics card can use what's called an open-weight model.
Basically, free AI.
Yes. Open-weight models are essentially free software recipes that anyone can download and run locally. You can use them to clone a voice perfectly from like a 10-second audio clip. So if the technology is free and ubiquitous, what is the actual constraint in the market?
The legal permission to use it.
Exactly. The constraint is catalogs and control. OpenAI is reportedly targeting a public IPO by the end of 2026. When a company goes public, they file an S-1 document with the SEC. An S-1 filing requires rigorous public disclosure of all material risks, and that includes intellectual property liabilities.
Oh, I see.
By acquiring Weights.gg and taking that unauthorized catalog off the open web, OpenAI is actively sanitizing the ecosystem's liabilities.
So they're presenting a legally ironclad platform for Wall Street. That perfectly explains why OpenAI keeps its own voice cloning tool, voice engine, highly restricted. They are moving all voice capabilities strictly inside consent contracts through their real-time API.
That's the moat.
Yeah, they're essentially saying, hey, we have the technology, but we only deploy it where we have explicit contractual consent, unlike the open web. The real product they're selling isn't the AI model itself. The real product is the legal compliance.
And this executive-level restructuring, optimizing for efficiency, liability, and infrastructure isn't just happening in the IP space. It brings us to the final and perhaps most impactful section of our briefing today, the macroeconomic restructuring and the immediate human cost. We really have to examine the economic reality of the white-collar squeeze.
The data on this is incredibly stark. Meta is slashing roughly 8,000 jobs and freezing another 6,000 open roles. And then you have Walmart. Walmart is purging about 1,000 corporate workers, relocating teams, and heavily centralizing operations.
There's massive cuts.
Right, and they are explicitly targeting middle management and overlapping corporate roles. But here's the crucial analytical point. Walmart is making these cuts from a position of a profound market strength, not weakness. Their sales were actually up.
Historically, workforce reductions of this scale are defensive retrenchments during a revenue crisis. But what we are seeing right now is strategic capital reallocation.
It reminds me of the shift from a land grab to an efficiency engine. Think about corporate hiring over the last decade. It was treated like a massive land grab. Capital was cheap, interest rates were low, and the goal was just to hire as many smart people as possible to capture market share, build new apps, and explore side projects.
The corporation was a sprawling campus of exploration.
Exactly. Now, the paradigm has violently shifted. The modern corporation is a ruthless efficiency engine.
This raises an important question regarding the new math of corporate America. Wall Street is currently rewarding companies that shift capital away from human labor and directly into AI infrastructure. Why? Because AI is proving to be a structural margin expander.
Meaning, a company can grow their profits without having to hire more humans to do the extra work.
They are decoupling revenue growth from headcount growth. Walmart actually hired a former Instacart executive to lead their global AI acceleration. When you integrate AI deeply into logistics, inventory, and management workflows, you suddenly realize you have different human teams working on overlapping problems.
And AI just cuts right through that.
The AI streamlines the process, flattening the organization. You no longer need 5 layers of middle management to oversee a process that a centralized AI agent can monitor and execute autonomously.
And the economic fallout from this shift is creating a historic wealth divide, even within Silicon Valley itself. A recent analysis pointed out that right now, there are roughly 10,000 tech insiders like founders and early employees at infrastructure companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and NVIDIA who have hit retirement wealth of $20 million or more.
Which is staggering.
It is. Meanwhile, the broader class of traditional software engineers, the actual people who built the apps and websites you've used for the last decade, are facing deep malaise and widespread layoffs. I mean, imagine being a top-tier app developer and realizing your life skill might no longer be the premium asset it once was.
It is the stark reality of infrastructure versus application. The immense wealth is concentrating entirely at the foundational layer. The companies building the physical models, the chips, and the data centers. The layers built on top of that, like routine software engineering, middle management, and operational administration, they are being rapidly depreciated by the very infrastructure being built.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this all together and synthesize this deep dive into a final executive summary. We are witnessing a massive, historic capital reallocation. AI is no longer just a generative software tool that you type queries into.
Definitely not.
It evolved into an autonomous agent capable of bypassing digital friction to operate your devices while they sleep. It is rapidly being trained to understand the physics of the physical world through sensory world models. It is actively merging with human biology through highly capitalized brain-computer interfaces.
And crucially, it is being weaponized by corporate boards.
Exactly, to replace legacy white-collar infrastructure, expanding margins by decoupling human headcount from revenue growth.
So for you, the listener, the analytical takeaway is to apply this framework to your own environment. Look critically at your own industry and your own organization. Where are the friction points? Where are the layers of overlapping management, the routine data processing, the digital bottlenecks? Because those are precisely the areas that these new autonomous AI agents will inevitably target and streamline. The transition is not pending, it is actively executing.
And that leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over as we conclude this briefing. If these AI systems successfully replace the overlapping corporate management layers that have historically provided a stable middle-class income for millions of white-collar workers,
Right.
and if simultaneously this same transition creates unprecedented multi-million-dollar wealth for a tiny fraction of infrastructure builders, well, are we systematically designing a future economy that is incredibly flawlessly efficient but functionally missing a middle class with the capital to actually buy the products being sold?
That is the ultimate macroeconomic paradox we will have to face.
Thank you for joining us for this executive briefing. We'll see you on the next deep dive.